In a world of great wealth and poverty, there lived a rich man named Marcus, who indulged in every luxury imaginable. His table was always filled with the finest foods, his cellar was stocked with the rarest wines, and his mansion was adorned with the most exquisite decorations. He spent his days feasting and reveling, never once considering the struggles of those around him. Just outside his gate lay a poor man named Lazarus, who was sick and struggling to survive. He longed for just a scrap of food or a sip of water, but Marcus ignored him, too caught up in his own pleasures to notice. One day, Marcus threw a grand banquet, inviting all the wealthy and influential people of the city. The tables were laden with delicacies, and the wine flowed like rivers. But just outside, Lazarus lay dying, his body weak and his spirit faint. As the night wore on, Marcus and his guests indulged in every pleasure imaginable. They laughed and joked, never once thinking of the suffering of those around them. But as they reveled, Lazarus's condition grew worse. He cried out for help, but no one came. Finally, Lazarus died, alone and unloved. But his spirit did not rest. He was taken to a place of great beauty and light, where he was comforted by Abraham, the father of the faithful. See info above. Meanwhile, Marcus continued to live his life of luxury, never once thinking of the consequences of his actions. But one day he too died, and his spirit was taken to a place of great suffering. As he looked up, he saw Abraham and Lazarus standing in a place of great beauty and light. "Abraham, have mercy on me," Marcus cried. "Send Lazarus to cool my tongue with a drop of water." Abraham looked at Marcus with sorrow. "My child, you had your chance to help Lazarus in life, but you ignored him. Now it is too late. You must suffer the consequences of your actions." Marcus realized too late that his wealth and status meant nothing in the afterlife. He had been judged based on how he treated others, and he had been found wanting. "Please, Abraham, send Lazarus to warn my brothers about this place," Marcus begged. Abraham shook his head. Even if Lazarus were to rise from the dead and warn them, they would not listen. They are just like you, too caught up in their own pleasures to consider the struggles of others. Marcus was filled with regret and sorrow. He had wasted his life on fleeting pleasures, and now he was paying the price. He realized that true wealth came not from gold or silver, but from kindness, compassion, and generosity. As Marcus suffered in darkness, Lazarus was comforted in the light. He had lived a life of poverty and struggle, but he had never lost sight of what truly mattered. He had loved and been loved, and now he was at peace. As Marcus suffered in darkness, he couldn't help but think about his life on earth. He remembered the countless times he had ignored Lazarus, the poor man who lay at his gate. He remembered the feasts he had thrown, the fine clothes he had worn, and the luxurious life he had lived. But most of all, he remembered the opportunities he had missed to make a difference in the lives of those around him. He had been so caught up in his own pleasures that he had ignored the struggles of others. Just then, Abraham spoke to Marcus. "My child, you are suffering now because of the choices you made in life. But it is not too late to learn from your mistakes. Tell me, what do you think is the greatest tragedy of your life?" Marcus thought for a moment before answering. "I think the greatest tragedy of my life is that I ignored those in need. I was so caught up in my own pleasures that I forgot about the struggles of others." Abraham nodded. "You are correct, Marcus. Your greatest tragedy is indeed your failure to help those in need. But it is not too late to learn from your mistakes. You can still use your story to warn others about the dangers of ignoring those in need." And with that, Abraham gave Marcus a task. "Go back to earth and warn your brothers about the dangers of ignoring those in need. Tell them about your life of luxury and your failure to help others. Maybe they will listen and avoid the same mistakes you made." Marcus was taken aback. He had never thought that he would be given a second chance to make things right. He eagerly accepted the task and was sent back to Earth to warn his brothers. Marcus found himself standing in front of his brother's mansion, looking much like he had in life. He took a deep breath and knocked on the door. Marcus found himself standing in front of his brother's mansion, looking much like he had in life. He took a deep breath and knocked on the door. One of his brothers answered, looking surprised to see Marcus standing there. "Marcus, is that you? But you're dead." Marcus nodded. "Yes, I am dead. But I have been sent back to warn you about the dangers of ignoring those in need. I lived a life of luxury just like you, and I ignored those who were struggling, but now I am suffering the consequences." His brother laughed. "You're just trying to scare us, Marcus. We're not afraid of your stories." But Marcus was insistent. "Please, listen to me. I know what I'm talking about. I've seen the suffering that awaits those who ignore others. Don't make the same mistakes I did." His brother rolled his eyes and turned to go back inside. "We'll think about it, Marcus, but for now, we're busy enjoying our lives." Marcus sighed and turned to leave. He knew it wouldn't be easy to convince his brothers to change their ways, but he had to try. As he walked away, he saw a figure lying by the gate. It was a poor man, just like Lazarus had been. Marcus felt a pang of recognition and regret. He knew he had to do something to help this man, or risk suffering the same consequences he was suffering now. Marcus approached the poor man and saw that he was shivering with cold and hunger. He remembered the countless times he had ignored Lazarus, and he knew he couldn't make the same mistake again. He took off his cloak and wrapped it around the poor man's shoulders. "Here, take this," he said, "and come with me. I'll get you some food and drink." The poor man looked up at Marcus in surprise, but he didn't hesitate. He followed Marcus to a nearby tavern, where Marcus bought him a hot meal and a cup of wine. As they ate, Marcus told the poor man about his experiences in the afterlife. He told him about the suffering he had endured and the lessons he had learned. The poor man listened intently, and Marcus could see the fear in his eyes. "Please," the poor man said, "tell me how to avoid such suffering." Marcus smiled. "It's simple," he said. "Just love and care for others. Don't ignore those in need, like I did. Remember, true wealth comes not from gold or silver, but from kindness and compassion." The poor man nodded, and Marcus could see the understanding in his eyes. He knew that he had made a difference, and that this man would not make the same mistakes he had made. As they finished their meal, Marcus stood up to leave, but the poor man grasped his arm. "Wait," he said. "What's your name?" "My name is Marcus," he replied. The poor man's eyes widened in surprise. "Marcus, the rich man? I've heard of you." Marcus nodded. "Yes, that's me. But I'm not rich anymore. I'm just a messenger, trying to warn others about the dangers of ignoring those in need." The poor man smiled. "Thank you, Marcus. Your message has not been in vain." And with that, Marcus continued on his journey, spreading his message to anyone who would listen. The story of the rich man and Lazarus teaches us that true wealth comes not from what we have, but from how we treat others. Let us not be like Marcus, ignoring those in need and indulging in fleeting pleasures. Instead, let us be like Lazarus, living a life of kindness, compassion, and generosity.